What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about Aurora and how they are ready to ride the Mexican legalization. So it's now official that on January 1st, 2021, Mexico will be the third country to legalize recreational pot. So legalization in Mexico is going to be a lot different than how it was in Canada. One of the big reasons is mostly because the Mexican cartel. What role is the Mexican cartel going to play into this whole legalization thing? So the key question is, what's going to happen with the Mexican cartels? What's going to happen with this legalized recreational pot? Is it just going to be transitioned over from illegal to legal pot? Or will it completely eliminate the cartels? Which I highly doubt that, because they play a very big key role in politics in Mexico. So we're going to be getting into this video real quick. It's going to be an interesting one. Stay tuned. Also, before we start this video, don't forget, give me a quick thumbs up, hit that notification bell, smash that subscribe button, and let's get this video started. So we're just going to dive straight into this article right here, which is Aurora ready to ride the Mexican legalization. So the legalization of recreational pot in Mexico has been all over the financial news lately, as it'll not only become the third nation in the world to legalize recreational pot, but easily the largest as well. It's following in the footsteps of Canada and Uruguay. While Mexico is still working on the details of legalization of the recreational pot market, it's largely a formality as to it being approved, with the final draft of the law to be decided in the near future. So Aurora already has a foothold in Mexico. So I've actually made a video about this in the past, but of the major companies, only Aurora has a foothold in Mexico. It gained that through its 2018 acquisition of Farmacias Magistrales. So with that acquisition, Aurora received access to over 500 hospitals and pharmacies in Mexico. So Farmacias Magistrales, I'm just going to call them Farmacias, is the only company in Mexico that is licensed to import cannabis with more than 1% THC. I think that this will be a positive for Aurora when recreational pot is legalized, because it's highly probable Farmacias could be given favorable licensing treatments in comparison to foreign companies trying to gain licensing approval from this point on. That doesn't guarantee Farmacias will be approved, but it does have a good chance of being approved, which would be an enormous competitive advantage for Aurora and a very defensible moat. So there you have it. Out of all the companies, Aurora, Afria, Tilray, all these companies, the only company that has a foothold in Mexico as of right now is Aurora Cannabis, and I'm pretty sure this was all part of their master plan to begin with, because we've already been expecting Mexico to legalize pot recreationally across the whole country, and now we're getting closer to that day, and we're going to be talking about that soon in this video. So why that's important is because Mexico is definitely leaning towards giving its own citizens priority in relationship to licensing, to the degree that larger cannabis firms will probably be rejected, or at least put on a hold until Mexican producers and distributors are entrenched in the business. That could easily take several years and maybe longer, which I understand why Mexico is doing this. They pretty much are taking care of themselves instead of giving jobs and giving money to companies outside of Mexico, like in Canada or in the United States. They want to take care of their own people first, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. So what also remains to be seen is the role the brutal cartels will play after recreational pot is legalized. The biggest question there is whether or not it'll do nothing more than transition illegal sales to legal sales, with the cartels remaining in power and control of the recreational cannabis industry. Individual and smaller businesses will get the scraps left over under that scenario. So the cartels, I'm sure if you guys heard about them by now, they play a huge role in Mexico, and they've been transferring pot from Mexico to the United States for as long as people can remember. The whole war on drugs, a lot of it did have to do with Mexico and the United States, and the cartels pretty much run the whole entire black market of all the illegal plants being grown. And I'm sure it's not just pot, but this is what we're going to be talking about in this video. So when recreational pot is legalized, it'll open a door for more medical cannabis sales, because potentially new patients will be comfortable with using it under those conditions. Legalization tends to remove the stigma of usage, as the Canadian market and American states that have legalized recreational pot have shown. So let me know in the comments section, what do you think is going to happen with the cartels in Mexico once pot becomes recreationally legal? Do you think the cartels will still continue to run this business, except now they'll be doing it legally, or do you think all these illegal black market sales will start to shrink and new companies, small companies, will start to appear out of nowhere. I personally think that this will still be something that will be controlled by the cartels, except now they can legally do it. They'll be making legal money, probably paying taxes. We'll probably be hearing about a lot of allegations, a lot of illegal things going on there. I mean, it's happening here in Canada. We've had a lot of stuff going on with Afria, with CanTrust, etc. So if it happened here in Canada, we'll probably be hearing news about that stuff in the near future coming straight from Mexico. So it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be definitely a lot more different than the legalization that took place here in Canada. So as Mexican lawmakers hammer out the details of recreational pot law, and end results include some elements that will be challenging for large companies wanting to compete in the Mexican cannabis market. The most relevant is the larger businesses won't receive licensing priorities in regard to cultivating, processing, or for retailing pot. While this is part of the parameters of the law, obviously it made to placate Mexican nationals. Whether or not it will be strictly enforced remains to be seen. Those most favored will be indigenous residents, smaller farmers, and poor individuals. The problem there, as Health Canada found the hard way, is most of those people and small businesses don't have the capital or expertise to build the facilities or retail outlets to meet demand, which is a pretty important point right here. So what they're saying is Mexico wants to take care of the lower class, pretty much the indigenous residents, the smaller farmers, and the poor individuals, and they want to favor them as opposed to the bigger businesses. And there are pros and cons to that, which is they probably don't have the money, the budget, to be able to grow the amount of pot that will be necessary to supply a whole country. And on top of that, like health hazards, you don't know how they're growing it. Since they are poor, they might cut corners here and there. So there's a lot of pros and cons, and whatever, we'll move on. So consequently, Health Canada revised the rule and now requires that those that receive licenses to have facilities built before a decision is made. So there's also the factor of illegal or black market producers and sellers buying up licenses with no intention of following through on building a business from it. I think that has happened in Canada, where licenses were applied for and approved up by black market competitors that simply sat on them for the purpose of protecting their territories. I can't prove that at this time, but I think the lack of building out facilities is more than the lack of financing, although that's definitely a part of it. So as the bill stands today on the Mexican Senate website, among the restrictions will be edibles and infused beverages only being allowed to be sold to the medical cannabis market, along with packaging regulations designed to reduce the attraction of recreational pot to younger people. That said, Mexicans will be able to acquire pot at the age of 18, 3 years younger than their Canadian counterparts. So they're pretty much following under the same footsteps as us here in Canada. Our packages have to be plain, simple, nothing too attractive, nothing to attract children or younger audiences. Their legal age will be 18. Here in Canada, it's 21. So the key part of legalization of recreational pot in Mexico will be the creation of the Mexican Cannabis Institute. The institute is required to be launched by no later than January 1st, 2021. So this isn't written in stone. It's happened here in Canada where we had a date and it got pushed back. But as of now, this is the date, January 1st, 2021. But I won't be surprised to see it get pushed back to March, April, May, June. Who knows? So what happens in the Mexican recreational pot market until then isn't visible now. With the Mexican Supreme Court already saying recreational pot was used to be legalized no later than October 2019, it would be shocking if that was changed in any meaningful manner to coincide with the establishment of the Mexican Cannabis Institute. So a major purpose of the institute will be to issue 4 different licenses in various categories, including production, sales or marketing, processing or extraction, and import and exports. There are limitations in the licensing process that will reduce competition for Aurora if the current guidelines remain in place, and assuming Aurora's Mexican partners receives at least 1 recreational license. So the major limitation is associated with only 1 license being allowed for a specific segment of the cannabis market. That virtually eliminates most U.S. vertically integrated U.S. competitors. The company that produced cannabis won't be allowed to have licenses for retail sales or other parts of the business. That said, competitors will be allowed to have more than 1 license in a single category. This will be beneficial to Aurora, although it remains to be seen which category it decides to compete in, assuming Farmacias is awarded a license. Aurora's large production capacity allows it to scale beyond its competitors, and if the Mexican recreational pot market is opened up to them, it will be a huge positive growth catalyst for Aurora stock. So now we're going to go straight to the conclusion. which is, I believe, all the companies outside of Mexico, Aurora is best positioned to take advantage of the Mexican recreational pot legalization in the short and the long term. The primary reason is because of its partnership with farmacias and the huge production capacity that is unrivaled in the industry. What remains to be determined is how long Mexican lawmakers take to legalize recreational pot and what influence the cartels will have on the process and eventual outcome, with the focus being primarily on Mexican nationals in the licensing process. If Farmacias is able to secure one or more licenses in the Mexican market, it would be an extraordinary competitive advantage for Aurora, which will have the first mover advantage in a top world market. So if it plays out this way, it would be mostly competing against inexperienced and undercapitalized competitors. It's highly probable that market demand will allow Aurora to scale rapidly in the country as its smaller rivals struggle to build facilities and retail stores. Finally, the negative variables in all of this is the lack of certainty of being awarded licenses and the influence and the level of control the cartels will have on the legal recreational cannabis market in Mexico. So there you have it, our official legalization date, which is January 1st, 2021, when pot unofficially becomes legal for recreational purposes in Mexico. And there's a lot of questions. For example, how are the cartels going to play a role in this? Another one is whether farmacias will actually get a license, which would put Aurora in a huge advantage. So let me know your thoughts and opinions of what you think is going to happen with this legalization. And the fact that Aurora can produce and grow so much pot could put them at a heavy advantage right now, because we're talking about oversupply, this and that, not enough demand for what they're producing. So if and when this Mexican market finally becomes illegal, Aurora will be laughing, because they're going to have so much pot that they're producing. They'll be able to satisfy every country, including Canada, including Germany, including Mexico. They're pretty much in 25 countries right now, and I think it will only continue to get better from here. We haven't even spoke about the US market just yet, which is still a work in progress. For now, every step forward is better than a step backwards. Every time a country legalizes pot, other countries are going to be looking in. So far we have Canada and Uruguay. Next will be Mexico. I'm hoping United States and all these companies in the UK follow in line with that. But that's it for now, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget, give me a thumbs up, hit that notification bell if you're new here, and smash that subscribe button. I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye bye.